Today on In Soccer We Trust, we're talking about what we learned in this last window about the U.S. men's national team and in qualifying overall. We name our MVPs and maybe the ones that need some improvement and discuss whether we really need a number 9. I mean, Olivier Giroud didn't even score goals at number 9 when France won the World Cup in 2018. Also, we're talking about the World Cup draw and who we want to get tomorrow and who we want to avoid at all costs. So hit that like and subscribe button and let's get after it. Yes, what is up, everybody? And welcome to another exciting installment of In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Chuck Wagon, also known as Charlie Davies. And we're going to break down all the good things that we saw over 14 games with the U.S. men's national team during qualifying and this last window. And we're going to look at some certain positions that maybe need to upgrade, have some players play a little bit better as we head into the World Cup that kicks off on November 17th. And, of course, we're going to look at the draw and who we want to avoid and who we want to get if we can, if that is even possible. Charlie, how are you? Great job on Paramount Plus last night.
Thank you.
Great dancing and little shoulder shimmies, and your kicks were looking awesome with your suit. I got nothing but compliments for you and the rest of the crew last night. But how are you feeling? We haven't really heard from you, at least on the podcast. How are you feeling about last night's performance? Because I was a little conflicted. I was disappointed we lost, and it felt like we kind of backed into qualifying, but we got there. We got to the World Cup, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think all us former players are on the same page because you could feel it at halftime. Like, this isn't the kind of performance you want to end qualifying.
Right.
Because I think we all knew after the Panama game they were through.
Right.
They were through, and they celebrated like they had made the World Cup,
with
which
the banner.
Is great, right? With the banner. But I will say, from just an energy standpoint, you could tell there's a big drop off, and the Costa Rica side, which was largely fielded, I guess, against inexperienced players. This Costa Rica team was hungry; they wanted it more, and it showed.
Right.
And so I think from that standpoint, you're like, man, I really wish I had a better taste in my mouth when it was all said and done, because it would have looked nice to be level on points with Mexico and Canada.
I know.
And you finish second. That would have been pretty, I think, incredible, and be the first team to win in Costa Rica. Obviously, it didn't happen. Even a draw would have been better. But I feel a sense of relief. It's an incredible accomplishment, as we know, to go to a World Cup. That was always the end goal. I think they picked up two trophies as well, the Nations League and the Gold Cup. That feels good too. But we still have a lot of questions. The good thing is we have all that behind in the past. We can focus on the World Cup and the build-up and who's going to be in the goal, who's going to be up top at number 9 at the striker position. Where does Gino Reyna fit within the squad? But these are all positive things. I'm looking forward to the World Cup, but I'm also looking forward to feeling who's gonna say, hey, this is my position. I'm going to be playing come that first game in the World Cup.
Glass half full guy. That's what I love you, Charlie. So before we move forward, let's talk about another giveaway today. We're trying to give away a $100 Paramount Plus gift card, a subscription to an amazing streaming platform that has the Champions League and Europa League and Serie A and NWSL and the Brazilian League and Argentine League and Scottish Premiership and World Cup qualifiers. It goes on and on and on and on. And you obviously get awesome series like the Halo series and all that good stuff. This is how you win it, everybody. P+ in the comments right now, the YouTubes, P+, put your social media handle. Don't use the @ because that hits an algorithm on YouTube that doesn't really work for us. That's how you're entered to win. Anybody that we haven't announced yet, we're going to announce it tomorrow when we recap what happens in the World Cup draw. Come back and join us again for tomorrow. That's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern is when all the action's going to happen, and we're going to recap everything we just saw. And whether we're feeling great about our draw, if we're feeling absolutely terrible, you have to come back and join us for that. But we'll get into our preview with regard to that draw. Make sure you follow ISWT Pod on Twitter, In Soccer We Trust Pod on Twitter, ISWT. That would be awesome. Like the video. Of course, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. If you're listening to this in podcast form, we appreciate you and your patience as we talk through all the YouTube stuff. Hit subscribe there. Leave us a review if you're feeling up for it. We really appreciate any positivity. We want to give that back to all of you, which is why we're giving away gift cards. So we appreciate that and this community that we're building with me, Heath, and Charlie. Now, Charlie, what were some of the things that you learned from these 3 games in particular that maybe we didn't know about this team beforehand, or maybe strengthen something that you were a little iffy about, and like, all right, these guys have this particular issue locked down? And I guess conversely, what are some things that maybe you're still a little bit nervous about after these 3 games as well?
I think what we do know for certain is that Tyler Adams is undoubtedly your number 6, and I think your captain going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just covers so much ground, so important to the team. I can't tell you how many fires he put out in the Mexico game in Azteca, and as well as Panama. He just and it kind of almost goes unnoticed, because when he cuts something off, or he wins a tackle, or he just covers the ground, and so the option is no longer there. You because you don't see him, or he doesn't touch the ball, you think, I know it's just an average play. No, it's not. What he does is incredible for the team. So I think we got him locked down, and Anthony Robinson, I think he's developed into a primetime left back for us.
Right.
His delivery got much better. The questions, the big questions for this group: where is the number 9? Who is it?
Okay.
I think Ricardo, Pepi, Jesus Ferreira, and P-Folk, they all had their chance. Jesus Ferreira took it with both hands. If you're looking at it from the positive side, fantastic. That's the opportunity he had.
Did he have the easiest opponent, though?
Of course.
We just got to throw that into the conversation.
That's the thing.
And we were up for that game in a different way. That maybe Mexico, we were trying to be smart. Yep. And Costa Rica, we looked tired.
Absolutely.
And it felt like that sense of, we already qualified, and you just have a bit of a lull mentally and physically. But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't the easiest game of the 3. Yes. And it was almost whoever played there, you would think would have a better chance of performing and showing out. But take that aside, P-Folk had an opportunity to come in and do what he does best, which is score goals, get in the box and score goals. My thing wasn't that he missed the opportunity. Strikers miss opportunities all the time. But it's what else he did in the game. He was losing every 50-50 ball. If you're a big target striker, your main job is to hold the ball up. He couldn't do that. The runs that he was making, they didn't seem intelligent. He looked a step or two off the pace. So for me, that was the concern with P-Folk. It wasn't the missed opportunity, which was a gimme for most strikers. It was more so the play. It wasn't great. And then if you look at Ricardo, Pepi, he had some instances where he connected some passes and he held up the ball, but he wasn't dangerous enough. And I think he's still a little bit lost. Since going to Bundesliga, you could tell he's just not in a good rhythm, and it's more mental. It's not physical. We all know his quality and his potential, but mentally he's not there yet. So I think he just needs to get in a good run of form with his club, and who knows if Augsburg is really the right club for him. And then I guess my other concern is the goalkeeper position.
Yeah.
Zack Steffen looks injured to me. He looks like he's carrying a knock. I don't know if it's the back or...
It happened in the Panama game. We talked about it last night with Heath. I remember him getting that knock and thinking maybe Horvath should go in here. And okay, that'd be great because we're already up and there'll be a little bit less pressure. And then we'll see what happens after that. But Zack Steffen kind of, toughed it out. And I thought that maybe Horvath should have started the last game. And very similar to what Costa Rica and Mexico did. They made a couple changes. I don't know why we went with the same lineup, but back. Let's keep it on Steffen first. We'll get into that part of the conversation. But something is not right with Zack Steffen, and obviously I think that gives us a lot of concern. He needs more games, man. He needs more games to get sharp and stay sharp.
Well, it's games, but also health. I don't think you look at the Nations League. He goes down, right? Ethan Horvath comes in, and it was incredible. Made some unbelievable saves. Then you look at the next round of games, and Matt Turner comes up, and he's big because Zack Steffen has the back spasms. And once Zack gets back in and he's playing, he's not coming off his line. That's one thing I noticed. He's hesitant to come off his line. And I think it's because he's obviously not 100% healthy. And then you talk about Panama, he goes down, and you could see he was grimacing. And I just feel there's something holding him back from being 100%. When Zack Steffen's 100%, there's no questions asked. But at the moment, I mean, that's a big question mark. He needs to go somewhere where he's going to be getting consistent playing time.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add, I'll kind of tie some of your thoughts together. When Tyler Adams went out at halftime, I think it showed against Costa Rica that we lacked a little bit of that bite, a little bit of that emotion. I think he gets a lot out of the other players around him. They level up their games to try to match where Tyler is, whether that's with enthusiasm, energy, or just this guy's going to chew me out if I'm not doing my job. Whatever it is, when he stepped off the field and De La Torre came on, we just lacked a little something. Maybe we were just tired at that point. Maybe it still would have happened if Tyler was on it. But I do think it's not a coincidence that we didn't have a very good second half and Tyler Adams wasn't on the field. Facts. And then as I watched the game or certain parts of the game again, because I'm a nerd, as you know, what really pissed me off about that second goal was that we just given up a goal off a set piece 8 minutes earlier. And you'd think, Charlie, you've been out there, that if you give up a goal on a set piece, you make sure as shit you don't make it happen again. And you're locked in to do your job, to make sure you're marked. If the ball bounces, you're there for the second ball. Like, everybody's on it. And that was their next set piece. They scored on their next set piece against us. And that was the one where Zack came out and should have punched it and he tried to catch it. And then even then, but it wasn't just Zack. Everybody just seemed like they were lethargic. There wasn't this urgency. Like, imagine if we needed to get a result in that game. Guys would have been flying all over the place to try to block that. There would have been a different type of urgency.
Right.
And I think that play is what kind of pisses me off and why I was disappointed after. I couldn't verbalize it last night because I was still like in my feelings and my thoughts. But as I've had a day now to think about it, that play kind of is a microcosm of why I was upset afterwards, because everybody was reacting. We were late. Zack was kind of like jogging back to his line. There wasn't that urgency. It's a World Cup qualifier, man. And this matters. Like, I don't care if we're almost there. We still got to go out and see it and see the plays through. And it's just like we got a little lazy. And this was not just him. It was everybody not closing the ball, nobody marking back posts, everybody going, well, who had him kind of thing. And that kind of pissed me off. And it did take the shine off of us qualifying, but it's I don't know. That was just something I wanted to bring up. I wanted to get it out there, put it out into the universe because I was frustrated.
I'm curious for you, now that we've seen, this whole World Cup qualifying cycle kind of go through the motion, is Aaron Long in the conversation to be an eventual starter, or do you think Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman are your two starting center backs come World Cup? Or do you think John Brooks has a chance of getting back in the starting conversation, or do you think it's Zimmerman and Robinson?
So what I'll say very quickly, I always say that, then I talk for 5 minutes. We only have 2 windows, man, until the World Cup starts. We have June, where we get some Nations League games. And then we have a 2-game window in September, where what I'm reading is we're going to try to get one of the teams from Africa that's qualified, if they're not in our group, obviously, and then somebody from Europe. We're going to try to go get 2 formidable opponents in that window. And then we have these 4 Nations League games. And is that going to be enough time for Brooks to win back over Greg Berhalter at this point? Now, I do think there are a lot of things pointing in favor of Zimmerman and Miles Robinson, and that is the fact that we've had 9 games with them starting. We've won 7 of those games. We have 1 draw, which is away to Mexico, which is an impressive draw, all things considered, when you look at it historically. And we have this loss against Costa Rica, where that wasn't necessarily a team firing on all cylinders. So I don't completely hold it against them. We could argue, too, I wanted to say that when they started against Jamaica in Jamaica, I think he started with Miles Robinson. Jamaica scored on a header, and they got it called back. Very similar to how Costa Rica scored. We didn't get it called back on that one. And so we were kind of on the precipice of maybe losing that one in Kingston. But that said, this center back pairing has been solid, and it's hard to refute those facts. So even if Aaron Long started to play out of his mind, and we know he's a Greg Berhalter favorite, they're just, if Zimmerman and Miles continue to stay at this form, I think they're going to be our 2 starting center backs for sure, and should be. Brooks, I will say that those guys, I don't look at them and think they're going to like play a 60-yard ball, switch the point of attack for us. I don't think they have that necessarily in their toolkit, and I don't know if they're going to get it in 6 or 7 months. But they're very good at what they do. And I think what I really like about that partnership is they're good leaders and they play to their strengths. They don't try to be anything that they're not. And there's something to be said for, I was one of those players, so I really respond and react positively to players that look kind of similar to me.
Do you like Chris Richards?
I do like Chris Richards. I think he's got some quality to his game that I really appreciate. And he's only going to get better. I think he's on the team if he stays healthy and is playing at a good level. I think Brooks is going to be out. Well, for better or for worse, I think we can make a lot of arguments as to he's good ball playing center back. He can hit that big switch. He's left-footed. Sometimes it's nice to have a left-footed center back on the left side of the partnership. But it seems like there's something personal between him and Greg. I don't know any details, but it feels like it's something bigger than just form. And I'm kind of curious to see where John Brooks goes in the summer. That's still a big part of it, Charlie. Where are these guys going in the summer? Not everybody's settled with their clubs. I mean, we could argue Pepi could maybe want to make a move, or Pulisic could be on the. There's a lot of guys that could be on the move that could really alter their form, because you could go to a club and everything works out and you get to play and you're the guy, or you could go to a club and all of a sudden the coach is like, maybe you're not going to fit, just like Ricardo Pepi's dealing with at Augsburg.
I would also add, if a Brendan Aronson gets a move to Leeds to play under Jesse Marsch, if that works out and he does well, is that a player that comes into the to the team?
Right?
Because you go to a World Cup and you want your best 11 players, and you try and figure out a system where you can incorporate all of them. Timothy Weah, for me, has to be on the pitch. I think he proved that, because he just gives you a different dynamic with his pace. And he against Costa Rica last night in the first half, I saw some things from him that I hadn't really seen in the past couple of games, which is just his ability to get around the pitch, be a little bit more, I think, on the ball and combine. I think he's more comfortable on the ball than I thought, which is a great trait to have if you are, a number 9. For instance.
Would you put him at number 9?
I would.
Because I saw Joel,
right now,
one of our longtime followers, Joel, says, why not play Way at number 9? And
I would play him at 9 right now.
Okay.
I think he has.
So Gio at the 10 and Aronson as a winger? Like what? I'm curious. We have options, which this is a great problem to have. But I'm curious.
I think you keep Gio on the right, or you could, because Musa plays on the right, on the wing for Valencia. You could even do that kind of swap.
That would be.
You need Musa on the pitch. He's a game changer.
He is. He's a good player.
I love what he brings to the U.S. Midfield. Tyler Adams and Weston are locks, so you have to figure out a way to fit Gio Reyna and Timothy Weah. And then Aronson, I think he's the wild card, because he brings so much to the team, especially on the counter press, and he's just constantly moving. If he gets a move to the Premier League and he's balling out of control, you got to play him, right?
You got to play him. But he's got some super sub vibes that I like about Brendan Aronson. And he seems like a guy that if you didn't start him, he'd be like, all right, whatever you say, coach. And I don't know if I can say that with maybe Gio, and I think Gio coming into this window kind of new based on his health, but I think Gio expects to start when he's 100%, and so does Christian, and whereas Brendan's like, all right, man, whatever you want, I'll play whatever role. So I'm curious, because we are going to need a couple super subs for sure. They're going to help be a spark off the bench. But Timo Weah at the number 9, interesting. I said that a long time ago, and I got kind of shot down by Hollywood Heath, but it's a way to get everybody on the field, man. If we don't have an emerging number 9, then why not?
Right, and it's easy to shoot it down, because you could say at his club he was playing right back or right wing back or right wing.
Right.
Sometimes in a two striker system, he'll be the other striker. But he can develop as a 9. He has the qualities that you love from a striker, which is making those runs in behind and diagonal runs, and using your pace and creating space for Christian and creating space for Gio Reyna underneath. That you need a striker who's going to create space and give you some fear. Not to mention, he can always ask his dad for some tips.
That's true.
Right? He can mature as a goal scorer. I'm not worried about the goal scoring. I'm more concerned with, can you create space off the run, off the dribble? He can do that.
Now Kendall says Zimmerman at the 9. You can't stop Thor. I appreciate the jokes there. But why not? Especially if we're down a goal with 5 minutes left, throw Thor up there and see what happens. What about Timo Weah? Corey makes a great comment here saying, if any player that needs to leave their club and go somewhere else, he thinks it's Timo Weah. Do you agree with that? And if you do, where should he go? Because it's not like he's getting a great run with Lille. He's got no goals for Lille. He's got a couple assists, but no goals, which kind of speaks to, man, maybe they don't get him close enough to goal to make anything happen. Maybe he's just a little disconnected when he gets on the field. Where do you think he should go if he does leave? Well,
the interesting thing with that is his teammate, Jonathan David, will be going. So it's almost
could open up for him.
Yeah, it's almost a natural progression for him to take that position. So now you're the striker for Lille. Now, I think it's almost certain Jonathan David leaves in the summer. So I think that's the best case scenario for him. If they go and replace Jonathan David and bring another striker in, and they don't expect Timo Weah to come in and play, then you got to make a move. Bundesliga, I think, would be beneficial for him. Maybe a different team within Liga, or you go to
Serie
a top.
A? Anybody in Serie A? Maybe.
It's
No?
tough if you're not playing for one of the top 6, 7 clubs in
That's
Serie
true.
A. You're going to get into a position like our
Busio?
guy Ricardo Pepi,
Yeah.
where
Yeah. It's fight and scrap all the time.
Josh Sargent is another player. You don't want to go to a club where you're not going to have the ball. You're not going to get many chances. So I think for him, Lille might be the best case scenario, just staying there and replacing Jonathan David.
What's interesting is that Jesus Ferreira might end up being the biggest winner in the number 9 spot, because Falk might be looking to make a move from Young Boys after he's on pace to win the Golden Boot in the Swiss League. You have Josh Sargent kind of playing out of position for Norwich and trying to scrape by. Pepe's not playing much. Hoppy's not playing much. You got I don't know. He might just, because he's playing regularly and he's actually surrounded by some really talented players at FC Dallas, he's gonna be in and around the goal, and I think be banging him in. Obviously, he had a hat trick before the international window. It's interesting to see if Ferreira will win because he's staying in MLS and sharpening his ability and getting his confidence through that, while the other guys might be struggling. That's pretty crazy. All right, before we take any steps further, I actually want to ask you 2 more questions, and everybody else that's listening and or watching. Has the U.S. men's national team improved since the Gold Cup? Something to think about. And who are the team's MVPs through this qualifying phase? Who are the most valuable players, absolute locks for the World Cup, that if we don't have them on the field, we are going to lose? Now, before you answer those 2 questions, Charlie, I want to remind everybody that we're giving away another $100 gift card to Paramount Plus. Yes, but we've changed the rules a little bit because we want to give an opportunity to the people that are listening on podcast form and are not here live with us on YouTube. Okay, so here's rule number 1. You got to follow ISWT Pod on Twitter. Okay, that's step 1. We'd really appreciate that support on the Twitter. You got to like the video. So even if you're listening on podcast form, you can go and like this video at some other point. And then whether it's on Twitter, you can hit us up with a P+, and obviously we'll see your Twitter handle there. If you got to follow ISWT Pod and do that, or you leave it in the comments, write P+ in the comments and your social media handle without the @ sign, because that hits the algorithm on YouTube a little bit different. And then we'll announce a winner tomorrow after our World Cup draw. We're going to find out the teams that we're going to get in the World Cup. That is exciting. I'm a little nervous about the possibilities, both good and bad, I suppose, and who we are going to get. But before we take any steps further, I want to make sure you understood how to win that Paramount Plus $100 gift card. So many great things happening. Champions League, Europa League, NWSL, Serie A, World Cup qualifiers, and so much great television, including the new Halo series. So we have that going for us. But now let's get into the questions. Do you think, Charlie Davies, that after the Nations League and the success we had last summer in the Gold Cup as well, 2 kind of split teams, that we have improved since then?
I would say we've improved since both the Nations League and the Gold Cup. I think for sure we've improved. How much we've improved, I think that still remains to be seen, because it's just been there have been so many ups and downs. Outside of the Panama game, which was incredible because we needed to win at home and everyone stepped up, which was awesome. And probably I'd say the best performance we had was away at Azteca. That game for me on the road, because this group typically underplayed when they were playing on the road.
True.
They just didn't live up to expectations. But at Azteca, they went for it. And I think they were the better team for most of the game.
We actually deserve to win that one. Now, I just want to throw that out there for context. The other top 3 teams I would say the top 5 teams in CONCACAF, we lost away to Canada, we lost away to Panama, we lost away to Costa Rica, but we did get a draw against Mexico. And I do agree that we deserve to get all 3 points there. We had 2 unbelievable chances and really limited their opportunities and stifled their attack.
So I would say from that perspective, I was really pleased with how they went after the game. It reminded me of the old cycles, the successful cycles of the past, where you could appreciate the grind and the grit and the passion and not being afraid to try and connect passes and not just rely on long balls. So they tried to play, and I thought they outplayed Mexico. So from that perspective, I was really pleased, and I thought they took a huge step forward from the Nations League final, which they were at times just chasing. And
right.
So I like that.
Even the Gold Cup final too. I mean, even though that game was a little bit more muted, and there weren't that many chances for both sides. There was still, I feel like, an evolution and obviously a merge of both the Nations League final and the Gold Cup final teams. And yeah, I agree with you. I think we have improved, and I think we've gotten tougher, and I think we've learned some valuable experiences that should I'm going to put air quotes around should help us for the World Cup. So let's talk about team MVPs then, Charlie.
Yes.
Who are, let's say, your 3 team MVPs right now that are absolute locks? I saw a shout for Weston McKennie already. Tyler Adams. How about you?
For sure, Tyler Adams.
Mm-hmm.
He would be the probably the first player I marked down.
Okay.
Oof.
Christian Pulisic. I mean, he actually wasn't a part of the qualifying, like too much of the qualifying due to that significant injury.
I mean, you could say the same.
He scored 5 goals. He scored 5 goals. So there's something.
Weston came up big and then had to drop off because of injury. So,
right. But Weston, I think Weston played more games though he did have that thing at the beginning, which wasn't a good look, but he got that sorted out. And I think he learned from that, which is important for him as an individual and for the team overall. Tyler Adams for sure. I think Walker Zimmerman's kind of emerged as somebody we can trust as well.
Yeah. Anthony Robinson.
Has
come up big in Yunus Musa. I think he has shown that he's got the quality. He's got to play. I don't know. I wouldn't put him in the MVP category.
But he's a lock.
Yeah, he's a lock.
Most valuable player.
I'd say
Tyler Adams.
I'd say Tyler, then Weston McKennie, and then Christian.
Okay.
Anthony Robinson on the outside looking in as far as like MVP. He's cemented himself in that position. Right. And I think Walker Zimmerman cemented himself in that position.
I'd say Timo Weah too has almost been irreplaceable. Yes. You know, he makes a difference in the squad. He's almost like tier 2 MVP.
That's what I have.
Tier 2
MVP, Timo Weah, Anthony Robinson, and Walker Zimmerman.
I love that we created a tier 2 MVP. That's the most amazing thing of all time.
But Tyler, Weston, and Christian, right? So those for me are the big 3.
Okay. All right. Now, before we go to break, I want to let everybody know that we have 2 U.S. men's national team players joining us live tomorrow for our very special World Cup draw recap stream. That'll be 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you join us for that. And if you can't, catch us on podcast a little bit later. You can hear some good comments. I won't name the players yet. Leave that as a surprise, but I think you guys will be excited about who will be joining us. Now let's evaluate Greg Berhalter. We've done the players. But before we go to break and we'll start to look forward to the World Cup draw and start to preview what we do and don't want, what are you saying about Greg Berhalter? How much do you think he's improved as a manager throughout this process? And obviously we qualified when we didn't the last time around. He has to get that respect, whether you like him or not. Yeah, I just kind of want to know what you think about that, Charlie.
I think for me, this was his best window for player selection and tactics. There were, I think, throughout the process, he's been at fault for either making the wrong player selections or the tactics, not being aggressive enough.
Right.
When he came into this window, he said, we're going for it all. We're going to win. And we're going to play for the win. We're going to play at Azteca. We're not going to rest because people were saying rest players, play the beat. He went for it. I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think he's matured quite a bit leading the U.S. men's national team. People are always going to pick you apart if you're the head coach of the U.S., especially coming off a failure in 2018. So if it's not 0 to 100, a lot of people are going to be hating on him.
Yeah, sure.
I think you have to give him credit. He's won 2 trophies, and then qualified for the World Cup. The ultimate goal was qualifying for the World Cup. He's gotten better, but yes, he's got a long way to go. This is his first foray coaching internationally.
Yeah,
I think from that perspective, he's done a good job. You cannot fault him for anything he's done. There's going to be mistakes. You're gonna make decisions that go against you, but ultimately, he's got his core 8 lock starters. I'd say.
Right.
There's probably three positions that you still got to tinker with. But other than that, you got to give him respect.
Sure.
Job well done for me.
What I'll say is I thought he was a little bit naive at times. And that was early on in the qualifying windows where we didn't play our best team against El Salvador, right? We were waiting to get our best team ready at home for Canada.
Yeah.
I think what you learn through this phase is, dude, you got to go get as many points when you can and how you can. It doesn't matter. You got to roll out your best guys. And if one or two get hurt, that's just part of the process. Every team is going to go through it. So I thought he learned that. Then in the second window, I believe we beat Jamaica at home. And then he changed 7 or 8 starters against Panama, and that completely threw off our team. Our rhythm was off. We looked really disjointed. That was not a great game.
We took an L.
We did. And I also think that he learned, remember, he tried to do it in Honduras as well. And we were down 1-0 at half, and then he made the changes that actually made more sense, put players in their best spots, and we score 4 goals, maybe our best 45 minutes in all of qualifying.
Right.
Which probably saved his job, man. That was like,
if
we lose in Honduras after dropping points to El Salvador and dropping points to Canada, that could have been a little dicey for him. So I think he's been a little bit lucky, but I also think a little bit naive. And I think he's gotten away from that. We're not making as many changes, and we're starting to put players in their best spots. We're trying to find those right partnerships that have worked and sticking with those partnerships. We do tinker, I think, a lot with the number 9 spot. I remember not in this window, but the one before that. First game Ferreira, second game Zardes, third game Pepi. Like we got to start. To Valentina said it a little bit earlier. We got to start getting that consistency. Like pick 2 number 9s, stick with those guys, and that's it.
Right.
And I don't know if we're there yet. I think maybe if the World Cup was this summer, I'm a little bit more leaning towards Valentina saying, but because we still have 7.5, 8 months, maybe we have a little bit more time to get there. But I do want to say, and I'm going to reiterate this fun fact that I mentioned on yesterday's podcast. 13 of the 14 games in World Cup qualifying, the average age of our starting lineup was under 24 years old. And to have that type of trust and faith in our younger players really does speak volumes as to what Greg Berhalter is trying to do and the kind of confidence that he has in this group, who still have so much more room to grow and live up to their potential. So yeah, there's going to be some mistakes, and I think he's learned from it. The players have learned from it, and we got to what we needed to do. Mission accomplished, as it's written behind me. We got to the World Cup. That's all that matters. We're going to find out what our future looks like in the draw tomorrow. Last question for you. And now it's going to be the break. Okay. Last question. I don't believe, and this is somebody that I'm just going to give some context here.
Yep.
I benefited from Bruce Arena being the coach for 8 consecutive years, right? I came in the second go around for Bruce Arena. I know he came back at the end and tried to save us last time, but just when he had those 8 consecutive years in the 2002, 2006 World Cup, I benefited from him being around the second time. But I've learned that the players needed maybe a different voice in that second go around, that they'd already been around Bruce in the trenches and had done all that. And maybe they just needed just a different perspective, a different voice, whatever it is. Maybe we would have played better in that 2006 World Cup. So I've kind of gotten into the camp of, I don't think any manager should have the job for more than 4 years, only one World Cup cycle, and then somebody else comes in.
Right.
Do you agree with that? And if that's the case, this would be the end of Greg Berhalter after the end of this World Cup. What say you on that?
I think it depends on the pool of players. I really do. When you have an older, more mature, I think, pool of players, it's difficult to be the coach, I think, for 8 consecutive years.
Yeah.
When you have a young group of players, I think it might be a little bit easier to keep that group going. And because they're still trying to figure out where they're going, where they're playing, what their max potential is. And I think you still have a little bit more sway and power, as opposed to if you're coaching all of the guys who are on that back end of their career, and it's a little bit harder to move them and get them going at times in the locker room. I think it comes down to results.
Yeah.
How well they do in the World Cup. Who's making progress? What do those games look like when he makes his player selection? So I think the job is not safe. You're definitely not guaranteed the next 4 years, but I do think, depending on how the World Cup goes and the players that come into the camps, how they perform and the progress that we're seeing, I think that's what plays a role in if they go after a new coach or if they stick with Greg. Yeah,
that's really smart, Charlie. I feel like there's more gray area than I want to give credit for. I'm going a little bit more black or white, but you're definitely onto something, and I'm glad you're doing this podcast with me, bringing some sensibility to this podcast. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the World Cup draw and who we want to face and who we absolutely want to avoid. Do not go anywhere.
The Covenant will not stop.
There is something within us. Something sacred. Something worth protecting.
Silver Team, on me.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Davies. We appreciate your support as always. Keep following us on the socials, ISWT Pod. Keep following us on the YouTubes. Hit like and subscribe. Turn on your notifications and hit subscribe and leave us a review. Hopefully a glowing review, a 5-star review on any of the podcast platforms that are out there. All right, Charlie Davies. All right, everybody listening and watching. Let's talk about the draw. We are in pot
Let's go.
2. So we're going to talk about pot 2 first, Charlie. In pot 2, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Mexico, Switzerland, us, Estados Unidos, Uruguay, and Croatia. So just for fun, and I want to get everybody else's thoughts as well. Hit us up on Twitter if you're listening to this on podcast form and seeing this or hearing this a little bit later. Who is the best team in pot 2? I feel like it's kind of crazy that Germany's in pot 2 , but
for me, it's Holland,
okay.
The Netherlands.
You think they should be in pot 1?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they'd be swapped with Qatar, right? Qatar would drop down to
pot 4, pot 5. If there's a pot 5,
but yeah, I think
Holland,
pot 1 team for me.
Okay, so Holland, but they're known, with all due respect, to kind of be the Spurs of international football, where they get to the finish line, but they don't necessarily cross it first. Still a dangerous team, obviously littered with a whole bunch of talent. I would say Germany. You got Hansi Flick in charge. Obviously, the guy crushed it as the assistant under Jogi Löw. He was part of that 2014 World Cup winning coaching staff, and he helped Bayern Munich win 6 trophies in a season, which is unheard of. And there's just a nice vibe, I think, about Hansi Flick, and the players really respond to him. So I wouldn't sleep on the Germans. Uruguay changed coaches after their longtime coach got relieved of duties, and they have now made a surge to qualify automatically. Croatia, obviously, 2018 World Cup finalists. You got Switzerland, did some damage in the Euros and can hurt you if you're not up for it. They're going to fight. Mexico, of course, and us are in there. Denmark, I think, have to be one of the sleepers. Christian Eriksen's now back scoring goals, and they were excellent in qualifying. They won 9 out of their first 9 games, and then when they already qualified, they lost the last one. So I agree with Kendall here. He says Denmark has been insane since the Euros, been playing very well. If Simon Kjær, the center back who plays for Milan, can get healthy, he should be healthy in time. I think that makes a big, big difference for them. But you got Christensen and Kjær, you got Schmeichel in goal, you got Eriksen running point, you got Yusuf Poulsen up top. I mean, they're good. And I'm just giving you a few names. They're really solid. So I think Denmark are a bit of a sleeper in pot 2 and could do some damage. But pretty interesting. Now, I have my next question for you. What's our dream draw scenario? Like, Charlie, if like, what's your dream draw? Like, what would be the most like, oh my God, thank you, soccer gods, for giving us this draw?
For sure, you get Qatar, pot 1.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
US out of pot 2, and then pot 3. I'm gonna go.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with Tunisia.
Tunisia.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody knows pot 3: Senegal, Iran, Japan, Morocco, Serbia, Poland, South Korea, Tunisia.
And then pot 4. Yeah,
pot 4 is tough, dude.
Ecuador.
You think Ecuador? You'd rather listen? I think you can't sleep on Ecuador, though, man. They were solid in qualifying.
You can't, but you have to. You can't have the same confederations, unless it's a European. Is the only one you can have 2 European countries within your pot, within your group.
That's true. Okay, so you got Cameroon, Canada, Ecuador, Saudi Arabia, Ghana in pot 4. We have, it'll either be Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine that come out of that next one. You have Peru, most likely going after Australia, so whoever wins that. I got Peru beating whoever comes out of that.
Right.
I got Wales winning that to 1, with all due respect to the Scottish and Ukrainians. I don't think Scotland and Ukraine will even happen because of all the stuff that's happening. Costa Rica, New Zealand. I'll go with the Ticos just because CONCACAF, baby. Let's go. So I think Costa Rica, Peru, and Wales are going to go through. I'll give Gareth Bale some love here. See if he can leave the Welsh to the first World Cup since 1958. But I don't want to sleep on Steve Clark and Scotland either. They haven't qualified for a World Cup since 98. That's interesting. Now, we do have a question about how do you prepare to defend a pot 1 team? Well, if it's Qatar, I think we go right at them. But the other pot 1 teams, in case you can't see the screen, Brazil, Belgium, France, Argentina, England, Spain, and Portugal. So dream scenario for me, Qatar. I would like to get in pot 3. I wouldn't mind a little Iran, to be honest. Tunisia for me is like, I think the one that they've qualified for the last 2 World Cups, so they've clearly got something. It's not easy to qualify from Africa. But Iran, they beat us in '98 World Cup. We owe them. We got to get some revenge against Iran.
I don't think you want that.
We don't think we want any piece of Iran.
I feel like you take Morocco then if you're gonna.
Okay, all right.
It'd be between Morocco and Tunisia.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Morocco or Tunisia. Okay, Charlie's winning me over again. Pot 4 though, I don't want Ecuador, dude. I would take the Wales, Scotland, Ukraine winner.
Yeah,
I do. I think that we match up well against those particular nations. They, in some ways, have some similarities to us, where they have some top players that are playing for big clubs, and then there's just hardworking guys everywhere else. You know, I mean, there's talent, of course, but I think we match up better with those. And Ecuador, not to say that they don't have the same, but I like Ecuador, man. I think they could do some damage. I don't really want to see them in our group. They're in my group of death. So speaking of group of death, who's in your group of death? Who do we want to absolutely avoid?
If you go European countries first, you don't want France. And if you go South America, Common Bowl, you don't want Brazil. So these are the two options. If you do group of death, France out of pot 1, us in pot 2, out of pot 3, Senegal.
Yeah, they're crazy.
That you don't want Senegal. This is a thing with African nations. Typically, they don't have stellar goalkeepers. That's kind of been when you're analyzing African sides. Usually, the goalkeepers are not world class. Mendy, Chelsea's
like the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yes, and you have Koulibaly in front of him, and you have Sadio Mane. That team is loaded.
They're stacked.
You don't want Senegal. And then pot 4, if you ended up getting,
well, if you have Senegal, there's no
Peru. If you ended up getting Peru for me is like all heart. That makes me nervous to play a team that's all heart. Like, you know, I actually think if we got, when I think about that, yeah, I guess you're right. Peru is all heart. I just feel like with Wales and Scotland, if we do one of those two teams, they think they're better than us. And I like that. I like when teams think they're better than us. I feel like that puts us in a better position to surprise them. But okay, Peru is all heart. And yeah, they would be a little scary there. That's if you got France. So you say France, us, Senegal, and Peru would be the worst case scenario. Worst case. And then if you had Brazil, it'd be Brazil, us, Senegal, and
you'd have to have
Wales or Ecuador. No, Wales or
could have Ecuador
or Peru.
Wales or they couldn't have Peru either because Brazil would be.
Oh yeah,
Saudi Arabia.
Wales or nah.
I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
So for me, my group of death was
I guess Ghana. Throw in Ghana.
Well, France and Spain. France and Spain, I think, would be tough. If we let's say we dodge Brazil, I wouldn't want to play France or Spain. I want England, by the way. I want to take on England. I'll tell you what I want in a second. But France and Spain, and then in group Senegal for sure. You don't want to face Senegal in pot 3, and then pot 4 if you had France or Spain. Then I feel like I don't want Ecuador. I mean, that's the team I don't want to face. But Peru's not a bad shout either.
Yeah,
it's tricky.
Wales or Peru. I feel like you don't want to play them,
right?
And Canada could absolutely have the toughest group of all time because they're the strongest for me. They're the strongest pot 4 team. Canada's going to.
I feel like Canada's going to be in the group of death. Yeah, I think they're going to be in the group of death.
That would be. Oh, they're gonna give an upset. I can tell you that.
Okay, so let me tell you the teams I do want.
Okay,
I want England. I want to see them cry real tears when we beat them.
That.
I would love that. And can Robert Green put on his gloves and play in goal for us again? I'd love that even more. Or not play against us, I meant to say. So England, I want to take them on. I want Iran for the things I mentioned before. They're good, but we have to redeem ourselves after losing in '98. And then in pot 4, we always get Ghana in the World Cup. So why try to fight it, everybody? Let's get Ghana in there as well. I want England, Iran, and Ghana. Let's party, and then hopefully we have a good crossover in the round of 16. If you could grab anybody, Charlie, who would you like want to face for the memes, for the jokes?
Who would I want to face? Portugal. Portugal brings me back to 2002, the 2014 World Cup.
Yeah, good shout.
I would like Portugal. And to beat Cristiano Ronaldo, we should have beat them in 2014. Like, give me Portugal.
I like that.
Pot 3.
Poland beat us in 2002 as well in the group stages.
Right.
Let's take down Lewandowski. You know what? Let's take scalps. CR7 first, Lewandowski second.
I wouldn't mind South Korea.
South Korea, is that a bad shout?
Yeah, Pot 3, South Korea.
They were in our group as well in 2002. Okay,
And
pot 4.
Pot 4,
Tough.
Cameroon. Mm-hmm.
Put some respect on Carlo Toko Akambi's name.
Yeah,
one of the best names in the game.
I would like to see that.
Okay. Now let's just talk about our neighbors then really quick. Let's go Canada first. They're on top of the table in CONCACAF. Canada's in pot 4. That crushes them. If they beat Panama last night, they would be in pot 3, which means they would have got to draw a team in pot 4, which we could argue would have been a better opportunity for them to get 3 points in the group stages. Instead, by them losing, they drop into pot 4. What's the ideal case scenario for? Qatar obviously in pot 1. Pot 2, I don't know who you want to face in pot 2. Again, it's Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Mexico. They can't get us. So it's Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, Uruguay, or Croatia.
I think they could beat a number of those teams in pot 3. If I were them, I'd want Japan, Morocco, Tunisia.
Well, they could beat Serbia, man. They got Vlahovic and Mitrovic, but
I think they could even beat Poland.
Yeah, Poland. Yeah, it's true. It's tough. Senegal would be the only one that they want to try to avoid.
You don't
Senegal. Everybody wants to avoid Senegal. Just avoid Senegal.
So that has bad news written all over it.
So Canada for me, I think they can be a super sleeper, and sadly, because they're in pot 4, I think whatever group they're in, unless they draw Qatar, will ultimately be the group of death, or be one of the groups of death. I think we might get 2 groups of death in this particular draw. Now let's talk about Mexico. They're in group 2, just like us.
Let's get Mexico the group of death here.
So Mexico took care of Germany in game 1 of the 2018 World Cup, which kind of signaled the end of Yogi Löw's time and the kind of that generation, that older generation of German players who won the 2014 World Cup. Can they do it again? Are they kind of in this lull? Their younger players played pretty well last night. Their older guys really haven't stepped up and been consistent through World Cup qualifying. That said, they still finished above us, 28 points to our 25. What do you think is a good matchup for Mexico, given what we know about their team and how they like to have success?
I think Mexico would do well against Portugal. I think they do well against Spain. I think Spain is overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people think of Spain as in the 2010 Spain team. This is not that team. I think they would do well against
Belgium.
I think they would do well against Belgium.
I think Belgium are ready to self-implode, like always.
I think the 4 teams you don't want are England, Argentina, France, and Brazil. Those are the 4 teams you don't want. You're lucky if you don't draw them out of pot 1.
Yeah, that's true. So you have a 50% chance, I guess.
Yeah, you have a 50% chance to avoid them. And then in pot 3, if you're Mexico, everybody except Senegal.
Yeah, okay.
So again, this Mexican side, talented as can be in the attacking part of the game.
They still need a 10 for me, man, though. They're missing a 10.
I don't know if they're missing the 10. They just haven't used the right.
Yeah, okay,
they haven't
fair.
used the guy, whoever it may be. The midfield is not strong enough, so maybe they strengthen it with a 10, right? And then I've been calling for Antuna to play. Uriel Antuna, who looks
very
like
good
he's put on some more muscle. He looks good. He should be playing more. And I'm glad he got in last night, and he just causes problems. He gives you something different. The back line is still an issue for me, for Mexico. They have to figure out
what? Lack of speed, or
2 center backs.
Too slow?
Too slow.
Too not physical?
Yep. Too slow. Get caught out of position. They get too central. They allow too much space to attackers generally. So that's the big question mark for me. Now, if they get going though, and they turn things around, they can make some noise in this tournament. That's Raul Jimenez. You look at Tecatito. You look at Chucky Lozano. Those players are game changers. Mm-hmm. They have the capabilities to make some noise in this World Cup if they get in the right run of form.
I remember the game in Jamaica. Mexico was down 1-0, and Jamaica got just a dumb red card. And I don't even think it was the player. I think it was more the referee that was the dummy in this one. But it just like a really bad times red card. And Mexico is still struggling to score against this Jamaican team. And then Tecatito, I believe, came off the bench. And he was a spark plug for them in a way that maybe I hadn't seen him. Like, he was unlocking the Jamaican defenders. He was running at them. He was taking chances. He was taking risks. And I wonder if Tata Martino will lean on that and maybe make Tecatito more of a super sub and maybe start at Antuna, bring that kind of youthful exuberance and that swagger. And not to say Tecatito doesn't have it, but maybe he's better suited coming off the bench, kind of like we were talking about Brendan Aronson.
Same
different
with
players.
Diego Lainez.
Lainez as well.
We need to need to use him. He's a quite a talented young player for the Mexican side, and one that I think will be successful for a long period of time if he gets in the right club situation.
Right.
And I think he's used by Tata.
Yeah. No. That's fair. It's going to be exciting for all the CONCACAF teams. Obviously, we're wishing Costa Rica the best of luck against New Zealand when that game is being played in mid-June. I think what's interesting about the teams that are still in the playoff area of this is that they're going to find out their group before they even qualify, which is kind of hilarious. But
vamos Los Ticos.
Let's go Ticos. I'm excited for them to get in and to obviously demonstrate the quality of CONCACAF, as we're always kind of pulling for CONCACAF teams when they're not playing directly against us. But that is our podcast for today. In Soccer We Trust is over, but that just means that when this ends, we're preparing for the big World Cup draw tomorrow. So we appreciate your support as always. Hit like and subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Hit subscribe on the podcast. Leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter, ISWT Pod, so you do not miss anytime we have some funny clips or some informative clips or whatever it may be, or when we're going live. Make sure you do that, ISWT Pod. And on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Hollywood Heath Pierce, who's taking a vacation because that's why we call him Hollywood Heath Pierce, Charlie Davies, and myself, Jimmy Conrad, we appreciate your support. And we will see you tomorrow, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, for our World Cup draw recap podcast with 2 special guests for the U.S. men's national team. It is going to be awesome. We will see you then. Later.